Welcome, everybody, to Game Over Toronto. It's just me, myself, and I, and all of you beautiful people who's chosen to tune in live today on this Festivus Christmas Eve's Eve. And it was quite a good festive night. It was a pretty easy game. I mean, nothing that would cause much alarm. It was a very run-of-the-mill beat down from a very good team in the Toronto Maple Leafs on a very bad team, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Something you would expect. Nothing out of the ordinary, really. But yeah, it was a great performance. We saw an absolute masterclass from Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. We saw Martin Jones absolutely stealing the net. Well, the backup net from one Ilya Samsonov. I mean, the team looked absolutely tranquil in front of him. Like, they were calm, cool, collected. They had there was nothing that they didn't look phased. I mean, the Buffalo game, they looked like they were on so much edge. It was like they had an exam the next day. They were like, their car wouldn't start. They looked just out of sorts. And it just shows you what a calming presence in net can do for a team. So yeah, I mean, great game, right? I mean, there's not like great game. It's as good as you can expect going into the Christmas break of 5 games. And you know, it would have really sucked if that Buffalo game that was last, the 9-3 drubbing of the Leafs, was the last game going into the Christmas season for the team and for the fans. Because, boy, that would make a sour Christmas for the Leafs. And it would just set the tone bad going into a break where, 5 days to stew on it. Like, now you have this win where it kind of looked like an extended practice. And yeah, that's the way you want to go into the break. So yes, let us talk about this game right here. First of all, how good was that? That national anthem was fantastic. Like, I have been hating on the national anthems across the NHL have been kind of bad lately. Like, a lot of the American cities, singers do not know the lyrics of O Canada. They don't, or they mess it up, or the cadence is off. Like, we have seen some butcherings of O Canada, but this one was good. They were playing it in bells. I mean, that was cool. I liked it. Shout out to the Columbus Blue Jackets game ops there. Yeah, when the game started, it seemed like it was kind of a little bit of heebie-jeebie start. Like, there was a lot of chances that Columbus was getting early and often, really putting Martin Jones to the test. And again, all credits to Martin Jones. He looks like he is not even phased in the slightest. For a guy who has been on waivers so many times and bought out, who's been in the Marlies, his career has been an absolute roller coaster ride. And through it all, he is not phased. He looks calm. He looks like, hey, this is my net. And he doesn't seem like he's worried at all. It's quite the juxtaposition from what we see when you have Ilya Samsonov in net, where every shot is a fire drill, where every time a puck goes even a little bit hard towards the net, you're like, oh my God, it's going in. Oh my God, it's going in. Oh my God. It's the Michael Hutchinson syndrome. And we don't really have that with Martin Jones right now. So it's been kudos to him. Like, he's been one of the MVPs of the season so far. And great chances for the Leafs. Marta gets absolutely robbed by Tarasov there. But he wouldn't be robbed for long, because reunited and it feels so good. Marner and Matthews, the tag team is back. The Hart Foundation, the D-Generation X, the greatest tag teams of all time. Marner and Matthews, they brought the band back together, and it was classic. Marner could find Austin Matthews with his eyes closed, gets it across, and my poor Tarasov did not have a chance. The puck seemingly went into the back of the net before anybody even knew Austin Matthews was on that side of the ice. and his back of the net. What do you say? Austin Matthews, 27 goals at this point, and he scored another one. But at this point, he scored his 27th of the year in 30 games. An unbelievable pace. They showed on the broadcast that he was on a pace through 30 games. I believe that was their method of checking. But he was on a pace that was only matched by Jaromir Jagr, Mario Lemieux, and Alex Ovechkin. That is what you call elite company. I mean, Alex Ovechkin's pace was from the 2018-2019 season. Mario and Jagr were from the 95 and 96 seasons. So this is rare air. This is a very rare performance you're seeing out of Austin Matthews. And yeah, and again, throughout the rest of the first period, again, Martin Jones, I can sing this guy's praises from the treetops. I mean, is he the best goalie named Martin of all time? Find out later. I'm sorry, I had to do that. That was it. It's a little bit of a funny. I amused myself because I'm talking to no one. And the fourth line, honestly, in the first period, I got to say something about the fourth line as well. You know, I love when Bobby McMann is in there over Ryan Reeves. It is night and day for that fourth line. They're always a threat to score. When you have Bobby McMann in there and you have Noah Gregor, who is Usain Bolt on skates. Like, he's not great at playmaking. He's not a great defensive player, but boy, can he fly down the ice, and can he get a snipe or two off. And yeah, and like they just do, that fourth line, I love it. They do a little bit of everything. You got Camp in there for defense, and you had him in there for faceoffs. McMahon mixing it up, and towards the end of the game with Zach Werenski, like that's the kind of snarl you need. You don't need a guy with getting staged fights. Like, nobody needs these staged fights. It doesn't affect the game, or else the Leafs would have been a great team when they had Colton Orr and Fraser McLaren, but they weren't. But having a guy who's skilled and who you can put out there in a playoff game and in a big moment and you wouldn't be that worried, like Bobby McMann, and he can mix it up, that's a good sign. That's a really good sign, and that's how he's going to stay in the lineup even when Ryan Reeves comes back from injury. I hope he heals fast, but I think you're going to have Bobby McMann in that. You can't move him out of that lineup there. I love what they've brought. So we get to the end of the period. And the end of the period was a very, very strange and scary moment. So we saw Sean Corrali during the play. He was doubled over and kind of like behind the referee. Referee does not pay no mind. And he's doubled over. Looks like a rudimentary, he takes a puck off the hand or a slash. Looks like he's hurt. Well, a couple seconds later, that's when we start to panic. And I was sitting there and my skin was crawling. I was like, oh no. We've seen a lot of bad things happen on hockey rinks this year. And when you see the bench like that, going crazy and like yelling at the refs, stop the play, get a medic. I was like, oh my God. I was praying he was going to be okay. And luckily it was when you looked at the replay, it looked innocuous. Like he got a shot to the abdomen, like in the chest, the ribs area. They looked in the tunnel and they were like, he needs help. But luckily, they suspended the rest of the period, but luckily we hear pretty much right away that it was all precautionary. He was all right. And it was great to hear, because I was like, oh my God, I can't watch I really don't want to watch a catastrophic injury, and I'm glad it was not that. So very, very happy to see that Sean Corrali was okay. Sidebar, they said this in the broadcast, but why did they have to wave down a paramedic from the other across the ice? Like, can somebody, you guys in the chat can tell me this. Why, did they not have a doctor? Shouldn't paramedics be on both sides of the benches, in case something happens? You got to be ready to react quick. They had to help the paramedic across the ice. Doesn't seem like a very safe thing, but I digress. Luckily, everything was okay there for the player. Luke in the chat is saying that he was taken off site for some tests. So Again, lucky to hear that, right away the Columbus PR team and, Frege and everybody else were saying that he was all right, just precautions. So let's get on with the game. We're happy to hear that. So, beginning of the period, it starts off like with a goal before I even sit down. So everybody is pretty much everyone's in the O-zone, including, Liljegren and McCabe, and they get caught. Like, they get caught by a very fast Justin Danforth. He gives them the taste of the Danforth and snipes it past Martin Jones. Yeah, it was kind of a comedy of errors. I was like, oh boy, here we go. Like, I feel like we always do that when there's a defensive lapse, because there's a lot of them, and we're going to get to the defensive lapses later. But he falls down, and it's kind of just a kill. I was like, this is a killer. Beginning of the period, this is how your momentum's going to go. It just makes it tougher. But, the Leafs were playing in Columbus, and with this game, after I saw that goal, I'm like, they're playing down to their competition. Here we go. But they weren't. They weren't. Today, they played. They looked at the schedule and said, we are the Toronto Maple Leafs, team that is top, up one of the upper echelon teams in the NHL. And we're playing the Blue Jackets, a team that is very, very much not. So I think they looked at that calendar and realized who they were and who their opponent was, and they dialed it in. And there was a lot of weird ref stuff for the Blue Jackets in this period. We thought that there was a penalty on the play, but for a penalty for going to be a power play for the Jackets, but a David Kampf stick, and then a dive for Adam Fantilli. And I got to tell you, I didn't see it. I didn't see it there. The Jackets crowd was getting getting on the refs. And I kind of agree with them there. I didn't see much of an embellishment there. I think maybe it's a reputation call. Like, maybe he's a rookie. Refs are kind of just saying, welcome to the show, kid. As the refs are wanting to do. But yeah, I didn't see it there. But, after this play, the John Tavares, this goal, I was like, who is this guy? Because this is not a John Tavares goal, right? Like, he channeled Connor Bedard, who scored one of the best goals you'll ever see in another game for the Blackhawks. But goodness me, the spinoramas and just absolutely walking past the entire Blue Jackets lineup and putting it past the goaltender, Johnny Toronto. This is not the guy we're used to. This is the little thing king, as was said earlier in the chat. This is the guy who gets the goals greasy, gets them in front of the net. He tips everything in. But boy, that was unbelievable. I don't know, that golden stick, that portrait they gave him for his 1,000th game, maybe he looked at it, got some powers. Maybe we're going to see a new John Tavares who's going to absolutely undress players and have the best handle in the game. Maybe not, but that was a wonderful goal. I jumped out of my seat like, what? Who? What? Where? What? Yeah, and again, we go back to another power play. Adam Fantilli, again, the number one pick, or what the draft pick, number one pick for the Blue Jackets, a guy that they put a lot of stock in their future. He's playing he's playing games right now. The Jackets are kind of out of it, so they're kind of playing, they're developing their young guys, and part of development is making mistakes. And he very much showed his young age, taking a second straight penalty on a clear hold. Like, he's fighting off Austin Matthews, but he really just kind of had this around him there. Like, he can't really do that. I mean, sometimes if you're more of a veteran player, you can get away with that. But again, look, growing pains, but back to the box. And the Columbus crowd, man, they were getting the ref you suck chants out. You don't hear those ref you suck chants out a lot at hockey games. Like, that's a basketball staple. But they were getting restless out there, and it was a really good crowd. But on that power play, another Austin Matthews goal, pretty much the same goal. Like, pretty much the same one. Mitch Marner, one side of the ice, sauces it over, perfect pass. Matthews off the stick before you can even hear a cannon explode at the arena, like quicker than the cannon at the Blue Jackets arena, back of the net. I don't know what else there is to say about Austin Matthews other than, boy, you got to appreciate this as a Leafs fan. Like, there's a lot of things bad we can say about this team, and we do very often. But this is the best player anybody of us have ever seen on this team. Like, anybody alive. I don't know how good Hap Day was. I really don't know. I didn't see a lot of Hap Day highlights on YouTube. I didn't see a lot of those. I didn't see a lot of Charlie Conacher highlights. Like, this is the 20s, the 30s, right? But I have never seen a guy this talented, not even close, wear a Toronto Maple Leafs uniform, even a Toronto sports uniform, let's be honest. Like, you got to put him, like, in his sport, like him and Kawhi Leonard for that one playoff run. This is a guy who's been here 7 years. Like, it is right there. Like, he is the best athlete maybe this city has ever seen. And that is, it's not saying too much, but wow. And they got him on an absolute bargain of a deal, right? Like, he got absolute. They got him they signed him at a perfect time. Like, the fact that they got him to the negotiating table before the season started was a big W for Bradshaw Living and Company. Big one, because they got him a higher number than before. But man, he's raised his game like to another level this season than last season. Last season has down year, bad, terrible year of 40 goals, only 40 goals. He needs 10 to eclipse that now, 12 to eclipse that. He has 28 goals in 30 games, almost a goal a game pace. Say that again 17 times. But yeah, like Mark Daig in the chat says, can 34 only score once during a game? I don't think he can this year. Go Leafs, go. Yeah, that's funny, Mark, because we were talking about like early in the season that most of his goals that he was scoring a crap ton of goals were like condensed into a couple pockets of games, but like the consistency wasn't there. We were saying like, well, why does he have to score 2 hat tricks in a row but not score for 6 more games? Like, it's not a recipe for winning. But now, Mark, you see that he's scoring multiple goals at most of the games. Like, it's like he is, and what is happening too is he's shooting more. And that's like, it just seems so elementary that a guy with one of the best shots anybody's ever seen should shoot more. Like, that's, and I'm glad he's getting it off. He has confidence with it. The wrist is looking great. It's not like he's looking healthy. And, knock on wood, that it stays that way. But, man, like at this point, I have never seen this guy at a level like this. But as we go, there's the Blue Jackets crowd finally gets a bit of a reprieve from the referees that they were absolutely hounding. Bobby McMahon gets a holding call there, a pretty clear-cut holding call, but the refs were like, okay, we have to give them a call, or we're gonna get they're gonna throw trash on the ice and they're gonna make us work a lot longer than we have to, and they call it right away, and they didn't capitalize on it, right? I mean, like, this is the team that's struggling. They're without Patrick Laine. It's just, yeah, it's they just didn't really capitalize on it. We almost ended the period with a catastrophic giveaway by Morgan Riley. I don't think it was a catastrophic giveaway. It was more of like, that was a great steal by Texier, by Alex Texier. He knocked that right out of midair. And again, Martin Jones standing tall again. And that was the end of the second there. On a sidebar, I gotta say, there are a couple of markets in the NHL that are like sleeping giants to me, and I think Columbus is one of them. It's like that and the Sabres. Like, obviously the Sabres are a longer, more historic franchise than the Blue Jackets, but these are the teams that they played more recently. Two teams that have just cannot find real success. I mean, okay, the Jackets, they won a couple series. They beat Tampa, they beat the Leafs. I'm not saying that the Leafs are any better, but that's a market that is, I think, is ripe for a winner. If you put a winner there, you're going to see you will see a massive fan turnout. You're going to see a lot of passion there. That's a sports town, the home of the Buckeyes there. And it's the only hockey team in Ohio, or only NHL team in Ohio. But I'd like to see them get things back on track. They tried. They went out, they got Johnny Gaudreau. They thought that, okay, it's time to turn the corner. And, man, that's why you got to appreciate the regular season success of the Leafs, the consistent regular season success, because it is not guaranteed ever. Like, your rebuild is not guaranteed to be good. Like, it's not like, okay, 3 years from now, we will set the timer. We're going to be good. And you're fine. No, the Leafs had a perfect rebuild, basically, and they were off and running within 2 years into consistent playoff games. And yeah, that's why you got to appreciate what we got right now, the consistency of this team. Third period goes on here, and now I had a bit of a moment here. I think all of us did. Morgan Rielly gets hit in the ankle, and it didn't look that bad, and it wasn't. But he starts limping, and as soon as he starts limping, I'm like, good Lord, but the season is flashing before our eyes. I thought he was, like, if he was injured for a few weeks, it would be a problem, because Morgan Rielly is a load-bearing pillar on this team. The defensive core leaves a lot to be desired, right? It's not. It's a lot of patchwork right now, but Rielly is the constant on that back end, and glad he was okay, because if he was not okay, that would be trouble for a Leafs team that is heading on the road in the West for the West Coast in January. Like, they're gonna have some tough games, and they're gonna need all hands on deck. And yeah, it was a pretty ho-hum third. We got another goal. We got William Nylander on the PK. I am loving the PK, William Nylander on the PK. Having a guy that just is a threat to get a breakaway on every penalty kill. I know you're giving up a little bit on the defensive side where you're trying to prevent a goal, but he takes it and he goes on a 2-on-1 with TJ Brody. Now, this was the most obvious shot ever. I thought the goalie for the Jackets probably should have read it a little better, because I don't think William Nylander holding the puck going on a breakaway is going to pass it off to TJ Brody. I just, maybe, but I think if you ran the simulation 100 times, he's doing that 99 times. He's sniping it. Bar down, William Nylander, and 45 points on the year. He's still he's not on that, he seems to have faded off that crazy torrid pace. Now we're talking about Matthews, but he's fourth in NHL scoring in points right now. He's been incredible. This has been his year, and it's gonna be the hottest topic going into the deadline and going into the new year is how much for Nylander. How much is William Nylander going to get? Let me know, guys. It's a tough thing, because we want to bask, you want to be like, damn, we have all these guys here. They're looking great. But, it's something that they're going to have to take care of. There is a lot of things that, this team has got to do, and finding a number for William Nylander that makes sense for both teams, for both sides rather, that's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. I'm a little more optimistic. I have a feeling, William Nylander might take under double digits a year. Just to be, at some point he has to, I hope he realizes the value of being a superstar hockey player in Toronto, right? The guy took the subway once. And everyone's well, twice. I actually saw him once, during, when everyone was wearing masks. And I was like, oh, that's William Nylander. But he takes the subway, and it becomes a story. And now he has a Rogers commercial because he took the subway. You see what I mean? Being a Toronto Maple Leaf is one of the greatest investments financially you will ever make in your entire life, right? if you do anything, they don't even have to win a cup. You go to a conference final. Like, Darcy Tucker was still getting checks in Toronto for a conference final team. Wendell Clark and Doug Gilmour are getting checks still from conference finals teams. Like, this city does not forget. So I hope he sees that and sees the value of that, because financially it'll pay off 10 times over, and also you'll be on a winning team. I don't know, guys. I mean, you guys are telling me, no, Willie will not take under 10. Luke is saying, oh, Willie under 10, you sweet summer child. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. You're probably right. I probably am just a wishful thinking here. But that's my pitch. Like, okay, here, 9.88, put his jersey number in there, Everyone wants their jersey number in their contract. There you go. It's not quite 10. It's not quite, it's not quite there, but you get a little bit, you get a little bit of cheekiness there. Everyone has their jersey number in their contract. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. And of course, Craig is telling me the cap is going up by $4 million next season. So it's a good thing, but that's the thing. The contracts still can't outpace. They cannot outpace the cap going up. Like, it's not like, because then you're stuck in the same situation where it's like you're still not adding anybody else. But, I can see, let's see what happens. I'm confident that they will get a deal done. I don't think this is going to be a scenario where it goes past the trade deadline. He has no contract, because, I mean, what a way to distract your team out of while you're going into a playoff run, when you're like, yeah, we have this looming contract situation, so it's going to be the last dance here, basically. That would be a tough look, like, to let a guy go past the trade deadline like that, and you're just hoping at a prayer during free agency when everyone's going to offer the sun, moon, and stars for this guy. It would be quite it's going to be a very interesting deadline for sure. Yeah, I want to see it. Do you think Marner deserves much more than Willie? Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. You know what? Like, I mean, Marner hasn't. I feel like this season Marner hasn't been like the topic of conversation a lot, as far as like, look what this guy's doing. Like last season he was on like an 18 game point streak, right? And he's on that 18 game point streak, and everyone was like, wow, look, he's unreal. He's one of the best players in the league. I think he's like the most under the radar guy on the core right now, but he's still absolutely killing it. Like, he has set up both those Matthews goals. He's been incredible. And I think they deserve the same number. Get them in the room together, man. Like, get everybody. I mean, Matthews deserves more, but I want, like, you get those agents together. Get everyone together and be like, listen, I have $22 million. 22 for the two of you a year. You guys divide it amongst yourselves. In cash. Get a bundles of cash. Be like, divide it amongst yourselves. If only things were that easy negotiation-wise. See? Business 101 right there. Yeah. So, another thing. So, in the spirit of the season of Festivus, I got to talk of airing of grievances here with the team. Team was fantastic today, okay? But there was this tweet that went out today by Megan Chayka of Statleets. I'm sorry, I can't speak. Showing the absolute gulf of the defensive play of the team last season to this season. So I'm going to read it out. So last season, goals against per game was 7th in the league. Now, 26th. And I mean, this is the whole season of last season and the pace this season. So, smaller sample size, but still alarming. Expected goals, expected by whom? 10th last season, 20th this season. Shot attempts per game, 13th last season, 29th this season. Scoring chances against, 8th last season, 23rd this season. Slot chances against, 15th last season, 28th this season. Odd man rushes against a game, 7th last season, 25th this season. You get the picture, right? You understand. It's dire straits, for the defensive side of the team. Now, like the thing is, we all jumped on Ilya Samsonov because it's the easy thing to do. And yes, he was bad. He's been bad. He's like an 870 goalie. He looks like he can't stop a rudimentary save, right? But it can't just be that. Like that's not the entire story of the season right now. It's the defense has been really bad all year. Like Ilya Samsonov does not stop odd man rushes, right? He doesn't stop scoring chances. All the goalie does is stop the shots. Okay, that's what they do. The goals against, you can finesse it and say, oh man, the goalie's been crap this year. But everything else, it lends to the fact that, hey, it's not just the goaltending. Like there's a system thing here. Now I know there's been defensive injuries. There's been Timothy Liljegren had a high ankle sprain for a while. Jake McCabe was out for a while. But it's not that much of a different decor from last season, other than it's a little bit older. You had TJ Brody's a little bit older. He gets caught up in a lot of odd man rushes and a lot of weird plays that end up in the back of the net. But also, you got guys in the forward group who are a little less good defensively. Like Max Domi is I love Max Domi. I love the way this guy plays. I love getting this guy on the team. Guy's got a ton of charisma. He's got a ton of bite to him. He's not going to beat many people up, but he is tough. That guy has his dad's toughness. But yeah, he's not been great defensively. Like, if he was a great defensive player with his offense, I think he'd be an $8 million a year player, not a 1 year, $3 million a year player. But what do you guys think? What else is the cause here? I saw some tweets, half in jest, saying Kerfoot and Hall were the reason for the defense being a lot better last season than this season. I don't quite believe that. But the point is, whatever the cause is, man, Brad Treliving has a lot of work to do. He's got a lot of work to do this trade deadline. I mean, this is a huge trade deadline. This is his first as the GM of Toronto. He's got to impress Shanny. He's got a lot of holes to fill. And man, where do you start? Like, of course, you need a right-handed defenseman. But I don't know if one defenseman is going to even, if one defenseman is going to paper over all this and make it all better and make them all in the top 10 and all those defensive metrics again, unless you're going out and you're not getting a prime Nick Lidstrom. And 6 1/3 said 15 goals in 2 games will skew those stats. That is true. That is very true. I mean, you give him 9, but they still gave up those goals though. I mean, they still counted, right? It wasn't like somebody just went into the spreadsheet and added more goals in there, right? They still happen. But I don't know. I think that's what makes me think I'm happy for the win. I love, and I think they've been, despite all the injuries and the bad goaltending and all the stuff surrounding it, they have been they played very admirably this season. They have really stepped up to the plate with their backs against the wall and showed a lot of resiliency. But to be honest, with these numbers and what I see with my eyes, they're still not a contender for the cup just yet. They have the best. They have so much offensive talent, but it's more like an all-star team than a complete team right now. So I'd love to see what they can add. It's going to be I think it's got to be multiple guys. I don't think you can just count on one acquisition. And I think all the other GMs understand that the Leafs are bad, need defense and need to stop more pucks to win anything in the playoffs. And I think knowing that, they're going to be like, oh, you'd like our top 4 defensemen. Okay, great. Well, just the first, that's going to cost you an extra second, buddy, down the line. Oh, you want our defensive forward that's gonna cost you. That's gonna cost you one of your top forward prospects. I'm afraid. Not a lot of leverage. Not a lot of leverage there when you have such glaring needs and everybody else is trying to sell and get as much assets as they can. It's a recipe for a little bit of danger there, but it is. The tree has a lot of work cut out for him. A lot of work cut out for him. Curious to see what he does. I'm really curious, and I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. He's made some big moves in the past. He's not afraid to make big moves. So let's see what happens. And let me see. I mean, guys, listen. Thank you so much for watching out here. This is December 23rd, and anybody watching, thank you guys for showing up here. Appreciate you giving me your time today. I truly appreciate that. But hit me up with some questions. I mean, it doesn't have to be Leafs related, NHL related, but anything you'd like to ask me. The phone lines are open. Not literally, but I kind of miss those old call-in shows. I really do. When it was we got Bob from Hamilton on line one, and then they would just argue with each other. I would that'd be kind of fun, but we don't have the tech. I don't quite have the technology for that, But alas, it's weird. It's really funny, actually. One time, I'll tell a quick story. Did you guys know, I was in high school and I called into the Fan 590, and for some reason, I swear this wasn't a fever dream, Jack Armstrong, the Raptors commentator, was talking about the Leafs, having a full-on segment, taking calls about it. And I'm like, this is weird. But I remember talking to him and about the Leafs, and I'm like, that is strange. Hello, Jack Armstrong. Love Jack Armstrong. So yeah, guys, throw me down some questions here. Did you guys know? One of the things I say a lot on these streams is that I'm glad that the Atlantic Division and that the East in general is a lot more competitive by and large this season. I like that they're going to have to fight and scratch and claw. Because, that's the thing. The last season, it was for them, not having having to have the sense of urgency or having their feet to the fire all the time. By January, we're all oh, great. Well, Tampa Bay in the first round again. Whoop-de-doo. It's bad for entertainment purposes. But it was also bad for... It was just bad for the team. How do you... It's human nature. I think a lot of people... maybe you can relate. I'm certainly this way. When there's a deadline or there's pressure bearing down, you perform better and you learn how to perform better. So I think they have that more this season. They obviously had the adversity early with the injuries, but now the division is wild. Montreal is 3 points back of Toronto. The only two teams in the Atlantic out of it. Ottawa for sure, and Buffalo. But Buffalo's not totally out of it. The Atlantic is wild. It is a wild division. The beast is still there. The Boston Bruins are eternal. They will be there longer than the sun is gonna still be shining. The Bruins will always be good. Those pesky Panthers they're still there. So I like it. I think pressure makes diamonds, right? Pressure makes diamonds. You'd hope. But we hope it does. All right, I got a question here by Matthew, friend of the show. Would you like to see hockey on Christmas like basketball and football? Well, yeah, that's the thing. You know what? The NBA owns Christmas. Unless it falls on a Sunday, the NBA owns it. For as long as I've remembered. The NHL does not like to compete with anything because they are at least the fourth pro sport in the United States. That we're talking United States here. And even then, you're talking like the MLS in some cities is bigger than the NHL, right? When you saw them, they wanted to move the Panthers game and Leafs game because of the Formula One race happening in Miami. They know their place in the pecking order, and going up against those behemoths, I don't think that they'll happen. And I think it's a tradition for the NHL, and I kind of like the tradition that like they have a roster freeze at Christmas. Like they kind of take this time of year seriously to where it's like, no, you guys are people too, and we want you guys to go and spend time with your families. You're on the road a lot. You're taking a beating, physically and mentally. Go and take your time with your families and rest up. We'll see you on the 27th. I kind of like that the league does that. It's one of the things the league does right. I actually think even the roster freeze, like I don't think anybody would be traded on Christmas Day, but you never know. Someone will do it, but I'm glad they don't have that because that would really suck for anybody. And even if you're a millionaire athlete, it'd suck to be traded while you're opening gifts on Christmas Day. And of course, the World Juniors own Boxing Day, of course. But let's see what we got here. Is like, Lucas saying, why is it fourth? Hockey's the best way. That's the thing, though. It's business wise. I don't know. Like it's an interesting situation. It's an interesting thing that like I think the league gets in its own way with marketing too. Like they don't like to market stars and drama, and that's what the other sports. That's how the other sports get to the top, right? Like the NBA, I'm a big fan of the NBA, and I do content for the NBA. There's always something happening. And there's a lot about the stars. And I think that's just naturally people want. I think they got to do that a bit more. They got to appeal to the human element a bit more. I know they're very hard on teams. Everything's team. The front of the jersey matters. Back of the jersey doesn't matter. But you got to get away from that because honestly, I wish they would have more. Like they would allow more access to teams. They needed like a Netflix series, like an NHL team, like kind of like Drive to Survive. You get that, you'll get more fans. Like I think people who see the behind the scenes and see these guys' personalities, if they let them in, you'd see a bit more growth in the game, in my opinion. Let's see here. I had an earlier chat question here. Who should the Leafs go out and get? I cannot find the name here. Bill Mills, I think, was saying, what moves are coming? That's what I got. Okay. So I'm gonna get my crystal ball here, shake it up. I think it's gonna be a Calgary trade. I think they're just circling each other, like just kiss already. That's kind of where it is at. It's like just, you got what we want, I got what you need. Like that's. I know he worked there and they were kind of mean to him on the way out. They're kind of petty, but if that's not any kind of deterrence. I think they're going to go out and get one of the Calgary defensemen, probably Tanev. What I hope is they don't shuttle first-round picks out the door unless a guy has term. So trading a first for Chris Tanev would be kind of disastrous because unless you're getting like a package, you get him and Zadorov or him and Hanifin, then trade the first. I hope there are some big moves. I hope there are a lot of moves because I want to see them really go for it. Like they have everything they need. They have to give themselves a chance. They gotta give themselves a chance. You can say, these core can't compete in the playoffs. And maybe you're right. But the NHL, it is the way it is until it's not. We thought Ovechkin was a playoff choker forever, cannot get past the Penguins. And then one year they did. Narratives are there to be broken. These guys are still not old. They're not old, and they're just maturing into themselves. Like if you look at most athletes who win championships, it happens in different sports, obviously, but it happens when they're in their 27, 26, 27. Like that's when you really figure yourself out as a player, and you're seeing it with these guys, like as they're hitting their primes. So yeah, I'd say go out, do something big. I would like to see something big. Just make sure you got some term there. Make sure they're part of a window because this is not the last dance. I mean, but make sure. I'd like to see them try to get a core piece and really put their chips on the table and get somebody that you're going to re-sign for 5 years. But that would be interesting. I think you're going to see like Samsonov probably. I can see it where they're going to move him in a deal, like just a salary. Like I don't think he's going to be, it's not like he's not a Jack Campbell where it's 5 years on his deal. They're going to move him kind of like what the LA Kings did with Jonathan Quick. It was just a kind of a contract for contract. It's not like the Blue Jackets wanted Jonathan Quick. They traded him later to the Golden Knights. But I can see that where he's just part of a deal to like Calgary, for example, just as a throw-in. And if you're a bad team and if you're a team like Ottawa, or you would take a flyer on Ilya Samsonov. You have nothing else to lose. If you're like not making it to the playoffs, why not see if you can regain his composure? Maybe you have a guy who's young that you can build out of the net with. If you get the guy from last season, a team like Ottawa will be pretty happy to have him. So I don't think he's unmovable as we think he is. People were asking, Lucas saying about the re-signed Gio, Mark Giordano. I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. It all depends on the guy. I mean, a minimum contract is a minimum contract, but I have a feeling like he's just going to retire and go to and be assistant GM. Like, he just seems the type, or like an assistant coach. But for a guy who's 40 years old, he still is somewhat an effective player, but I don't like being in the business of giving a lot of minutes to a 41-year-old defenseman. The defense is shaky enough, so shaky enough, so you don't want to tempt fate there. And so I believe we hit the end of this here. So thank you for joining me, guys, on my first ever solo Game Over. I feel like I have talked a whole lot because I have. My vocal cords they're fine. They're gonna sweat. My vocal cords are getting a sweat. But yeah, I appreciate it. If anybody has any last second questions, throw them in there. But just want to tell you guys, on behalf of myself and the rest of the SDPN family, I want to wish you guys a very, very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Enjoy the time with your family. Spread some cheer, be happy, and enjoy it, man. Enjoy it. I'm gonna do the same thing. Gonna eat and be merry. So, yeah, thank you so much for joining me here. Could have been anywhere else in the world on nearly Christmas Eve, but you're here with me. What's my plans for Christmas holidays? A lot of gatherings, a lot of eating. Like a lot of big extended family, a lot of food. So, I'm getting ready for it. You almost have to like warm up for it. I think I gotta do some stretches before you eat the turkey. Because it's coming on a couple of days. It's coming like days in succession. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Again, hit like if you liked it. Share it. Tell all your friends this is the place to be after every Leafs game. The next game will be on the 27th of December. It will be a crossover with me and Charlie from Game Over Ottawa. Those Ottawa Sens down bad, but a game against the Leafs is always the antidote for those Ottawa Senators. Well, thank you very much again for joining. Merry Christmas and peace.